This is Rosie, and she's most definitely a very modern baby blanket. The middle section of her consists of these really fun illusion triangles all the way up, and she has a really lovely simple garter stitch edging. No mess, no frills, just clean modern lines. Perfect for those gifts that you're going to make in the coming months. I've made this blanket baby sized, but I have left written instructions on my blog for you to make it any size you like just by increasing the number of stitches that you cast on. To make this blanket, you are going to need about 400 grams of double knit yarn. You're going to need some cable needles because traditional straight needles just won't be long enough. I would recommend either having 80 centimeters or 100 centimeters. And if you're using double knit yarn like me, you're going to need 4mm needles. You are then also going to need 2 stitch markers, some scissors and a tapestry needle to sew in your ends. So without further ado, let's grab some yarn and get making yourself a Rosie. When you're casting on a blanket with a built-in border like this one, it's often really useful to work out how many stitches you need to cast on for the middle section before you cast on your border edge stitches. You can add those on at the end. So the pattern multiple for the middle triangular section of this blanket is 10 plus 1. So you want to cast on in multiples of 10 and then add 1 stitch. Then you want to add 18 stitches for your garter stitch border to accommodate either side of the blanket. Today I'm just going to make a small sample, so I'm going to cast on 59 stitches, but if you want to make the same size blanket that I have, you'll need to cast on 134 stitches. That is including the 18 stitches for your border, so it is a total of 134 stitches. I like to use the long tail cast on method for all of my blankets, but if you have a method that you prefer, just use that one. Any cast on method will work with this project. The first part of the blanket we need to work is the bottom border, so the bottom garter stitch border. So our first 16 rows are really nice and easy. They are all worked in exactly the same way. So for 16 rows you want to knit every stitch until the final stitch. And instead of knitting the final stitch, you want to slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. And really simply that means you want to bring your working yarn to the front of your work and then go into the stitch as if to purl and move it from your left needle to your right needle and then flip your working yarn over so that it's at the front of your work. And you want to repeat that for a total of 15 more rows, and you will have worked a total of 16 rows. So if you go away and do that, then we can move on to tackling the middle illusion section. After you've finished your 16th row, this is what your work should look like. You should have your smooth cast on edge at the bottom here, and you should have 8 garter ridges in total. And this is what we will now count as the right side of our work. So the first row that we work after the garter stitch border will be a wrong side row. The main illusion part of this blanket is a 20 row repeat, but don't let that put you off because the second 10 rows are only very slightly different to the first 10 rows. In the first 10 rows we create one triangle, and then in the second 10 rows we have to stagger them so that our triangles aren't stacked exactly on top of each other. So it's really not as complicated as it sounds. Row 1, you want to knit the first 9 stitches. After 9 stitches, you want to grab one of your stitch markers and pop that onto your right hand needle. That marks your garter stitch side border, and it just makes the middle illusion pattern easier to work. Next, we want to tackle that middle illusion panel part of our row, and the repeat for this row is as follows. You want to knit the first stitch, and then you want to work purl 9, knit 1 all the way until you have 9 stitches left on your left hand needle. So that is purl 9, knit 1 until you have 9 stitches left on your left hand needle. All things being well, you should hit your 9 stitches left on your left hand needle after a knit 1, so you should be able to complete nice blocks of your purl 9, knit 1 pattern. And then once you have reached the point where you have 9 stitches left on this left hand needle, you want to get your second stitch marker and pop that on your right hand needle just to mark where the opposite end of your border is going to be. Then to finish off our row, you want to knit 8 stitches And for the final stitch, just like we worked for our border rows, you want to pop your yarn in front and slip that final stitch purlwise. We do this so that we get this lovely braided edge on either long edge of our blankets, and it matches up with that nice edge that we get at the top and bottom with our long tail cast on. Row 2, and every even numbered row is worked like we worked with our border rows. You want to knit every single stitch until the final stitch, and when you hit your stitch markers you just want to slip them from one needle to the other to keep them in their place, marking where our border is. When you get to the final stitch, you want to slip that purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 3, you want to knit until the marker. Slip the marker from your left needle to your right needle, and then for the middle section you want to knit the first 2 stitches. Then you want to purl the next 7 stitches. Then work knit 3, purl 7 until 2 stitches before the marker. You should hit 2 stitches before the marker after a purl 7. The last 2 stitches before the marker you want to knit. Then slip your marker from your left needle to your right needle and then knit the next 8 stitches. Slip the final stitch of the row purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 4, knit every single stitch until the final stitch, slipping those markers as you go, and then the final stitch you want to slip purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 5, knit the 9 stitches until the stitch marker. Slip that stitch marker over and then knit the next 3 stitches. Purl the next 5 stitches. And then you want to work knit 5, purl 5 until 3 stitches before the marker, and you should hit 3 stitches before the marker after a purl 5. Knit the 3 stitches left before the marker, slip that marker over and then knit the next 8 stitches. Then with the last stitch, slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 6, knit all the way across, slip those markers as you go and slip that final stitch purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 7, knit until you hit the marker. Slip the marker over from your left to your right needle and then knit the next 4 stitches. Purl the next 3 stitches and then work knit 7, purl 3 all the way across until 4 stitches before the marker, and that 4 stitch before the marker point should come at the end of a purl 3. Knit the last 4 stitches before the marker, slip the marker over and then knit until 1 stitch remains on your left hand needle. Slip the final stitch purlwise with your yarn in front. Row 8, knit all the way along every single stitch until the last one, and instead of knitting that last stitch you're going to slip it purlwise with the yarn in front, and don't forget to slip those stitch markers as you go. Row 9, knit until you hit the marker. Slip the marker over from the left to the right needle and then knit the next 5 stitches. Purl the next stitch and then work knit 9, purl 1 until 5 stitches before the marker. Assuming you've counted your stitches just fine, you should end with a purl 1, and then the last 5 stitches before the marker you want to knit. Then slip the marker over and knit the next 8 stitches. And then for the 9th and final stitch, you want to slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 10 marks the halfway point in our repeat, and you want to go ahead and knit every single stitch except the final stitch of the row. You want to slip that final stitch purlwise with the yarn in front, and don't forget to slip those markers over from your left needle to your right needle as you come across them. I've just finished row 10, and if I put my work right side up for you, you can see now we have worked our first set of triangles, and then we want to work so that the triangles are now staggered, but they are worked in much the same way. So that's why I explained at the beginning that although this is a 20 row repeat, it's actually 2 sets of 10 rows because they are the same sort of pattern repeat, but they're just staggered so that we get that nice staggered effect of our triangles. Row 11, you want to knit the 9 stitches until you hit the marker. Slip the marker over from your left needle to your right needle, and then you want to purl the first 5 stitches after the marker. Then you want to knit the next stitch, and then you want to work purl 9, knit 1 until 5 stitches before the marker. You should hit 5 stitches before the marker after a knit 1, and you want to purl those 5 stitches. Slip the marker over and then knit until 1 stitch before the end, and then for the final stitch you're going to slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 12, you want to knit every single stitch with the exception of the final stitch, which you are going to slip purlwise with the yarn in front, and don't forget to slip those stitch markers as you find them. Row 13, knit the first 9 stitches, slip the marker over, and then purl the next 4 stitches. After that, you want to knit the next 3 stitches, and then you want to repeat purl 7, knit 3 until 4 stitches before the stitch marker, and that should come after a knit 3. Then you want to purl the 4 stitches before the marker, slip the marker over, and then you want to knit 8 stitches, and then the 9th stitch you want to slip purlwise with the yarn in front. By row 14 you should be really familiar with the even numbered rows. You're going to knit all the way across, and then that final stitch you're going to slip purlwise with the yarn in front, and don't forget to move those stitch markers over as you go so that you are keeping your edges marked nice and clearly for you. Row 15, knit until the marker. Slip the marker over, and then you want to purl the next 3 stitches. Then you want to knit 5, and then you want to work purl 5, knit 5, and repeat that block of 10 stitches until 3 stitches before your second marker. That's purl 5, knit 5. You should hit 3 stitches before your marker after a knit 5, so you're keeping in pattern, and then you're going to purl those 3 stitches before the marker. Slip the marker over, knit the next 8 stitches, and then slip the final stitch purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 16, knit every stitch except that very final stitch, slip your markers as you go, and for the final stitch you want to slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 17, you want to knit the 9 stitches until the marker and slip the marker over. purl the next 2 stitches and knit the next 7 stitches. Then you want to repeat purl 3, knit 7 until 2 stitches before your marker, and that should come after a knit 7. And then the final 2 stitches before the marker you are going to purl. Slip the marker over, knit the next 8 stitches, and then the 9th and final stitch you want to slip purlwise with the yarn in front. Row 18, you want to knit all the way across until the final stitch, and then you want to slip the final stitch purlwise with the yarn in front, and don't forget to slip those markers as you hit them. Row 19, knit until you hit the marker. Slip the marker over and purl the first stitch. Then you want to work knit 9, purl 1, all the way until you hit the second marker. Your last stitch before the marker should be a purl 1, and then you want to slip the marker over and knit the next 8 stitches. Finish off the row by slipping the last stitch purlwise with the yarn in front. And then to finish off the repeat, row 20, you want to knit all the way across until the final stitch, and then slip that final stitch purlwise with the yarn in front. So that's the 20 rows that you will repeat until your blanket is the size that you want it to be. For me, I repeated these 20 rows a total of 13 times, so I would now go away and repeat them 12 more times after this first set of repeats. And then once you've done that, you can move on to work your top garter stitch edging. For this blanket, to give a little bit of separation between this last set of triangles and our border, I'm going to work 1 setup row before we move on to our garter stitch border. So for the setup row for our border, you want to knit the first 9 stitches, which should be when you hit your first marker. You can remove that marker now because we don't need it anymore. And then you want to purl every stitch across until the next marker. When you reach the second marker, you can remove that as well, we don't need that anymore. And then you want to knit 8 stitches, and then the final stitch you want to slip purlwise with your yarn in front. After the setup row, we can jump into working the top garter stitch edging so that it matches the bottom row of edging here. And the way you work that is you knit 16 rows where you knit all but the final stitch, and then you slip the last stitch purlwise with the yarn in front, like we have been doing with every row that we've worked. So go ahead, knit 16 rows, and then I'll meet you back once we have our top garter stitch edging, and we'll talk through the cast off. After 16 rows, your project should look a little bit like this. You will have your middle panel, which will be much larger than this one, and you'll have 8 garter ridges at the bottom and a matching 8 garter ridges at the top. Then to finish off, I like to cast off with the right side facing me, and that is because I like this smooth ridge that the cast on creates to be my right side. And when you cast off with the right side facing, you get a very similar ridge at the top, so the top and bottom match. I'm going to show you briefly how to cast off, but if you're not familiar with the basic knitted cast off, I do have a separate video that goes into it in a lot more detail, and I will link that at the top here now. But for those of you that are familiar with the basic knitted cast off, you want to knit the first 2 stitches and then lift the first stitch you knitted over the second stitch you knitted. Then you want to knit 1 more stitch and lift the first stitch over the second stitch. So the golden rule is that you never have more than 2 stitches on this right hand needle. If you do, you've gone wrong, and you just want to repeat the process of knitting 1 stitch and then lifting 1 stitch all the way until you get to the end of your row and you have 1 loop left on your right hand needle here. When you reach the stage that you have just this 1 loop left on your right hand needle and no stitches left to cast off on your left hand needle, you want to break your yarn and then pull this loop up to make it a little bit bigger, and then get rid of your knitting needles because you won't need those anymore. Then you can grab the tail by popping your finger and thumb through the loop, grab the tail and pull it through that loop, and then just pull to tighten. And then you would sew in your end using your preferred method. And there you would have a finished project with just a couple of ends to sew in before you can go ahead and gift it to somebody. And that's how you knit Rosie the baby blanket. If you've enjoyed this video, I would love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you do go ahead and make a Rosie of your own, then please tag me on social media, because I absolutely love seeing your take on my projects. If you're not quite ready to go ahead and get knitting, then I've linked a video up here that I think you might enjoy too. And I'll see you again for another video soon. Bye!